Hey everyone, and welcome. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining me for today's explainer, because we are embarking on a really fascinating dive into the hidden mechanics of global folklore. Have you ever wondered why the bedtime stories we hear as kids, literally regardless of where we grow up, seem to echo the exact same human truths? Well, today we're going to deconstruct the very anatomy of a moral by putting three totally distinct cultural folktales under the microscope.
So think about this for a second. What connects a magical swamp, a mystical whale, and a torrential monsoon? I mean, on the surface, absolutely nothing, right? They're just background settings from three entirely different stories. But underneath, they are actually the exact same narrative engine. Okay, let's dive into this and look at the structural roadmap that makes these stories tick.
To figure this out, we're going to break our analysis down into 6 key phases today. First, universal tropes in storytelling. Number 2, heroes of pure heart. 3, the crucible of character. 4, the face of evil. 5, ultimate karmic justice. And finally, number 6, why these morals matter.
All right, starting right off with Section 1, Universal Tropes in Storytelling. Now, what's really interesting here is when we map our three tales side by side, it reveals something kind of fascinating. In The Lost Child, our hero is a desperate mother whose core virtue is just this unwavering, true love. In Mother Holly, we follow Emily, the hard worker, and she's defined by proactive kindness. And then in our Hindi tale, Badrish Mein Gharib, we meet Dhiru the outcast, a guy whose superpower is selfless hospitality. We're looking at three completely different worlds, but they are unified by characters who possess a profound, foundational goodness.
Moving on to Section 2, Heroes of Pure Heart.
So, to actually prove their purity, these stories push our heroes to absolute extremes. In The Lost Child, a mother literally dives headfirst into a muddy swamp and then right into a chicken coop, getting totally covered in mud and feathers, just searching for her missing boy. In Mother Holly, Emily cheerfully does all the exhausting chores that her lazy sister and mother flat out refuse to do, basically surviving on mere leftovers. And in our third tale, Dhiru, who's an impoverished laborer constantly mocked and called a jinx by his entire village, still insists on sheltering strangers during a brutal rainstorm. They're universally defined by this intense devotion in the face of deep adversity. Which brings me to this incredibly powerful quote from Dhiru. When he invites the stranded travelers Raman and Janki into his tiny, leaking home, they protest. They don't want to be a burden. But Dhiru simply replies, "Insaniyat naam ki bhi to koi cheez hoti hai?" which translates to, humanity is a real thing. It's just such a beautiful, selfless logic, right? He has next to nothing. His roof is literally caving in from the monsoon, and yet his empathy completely overpowers his poverty.
And that leads us right to the ultimate takeaway about these protagonists. True heroes aren't defined by their magic, but by their relentless empathy when nobody else is looking. Dhiru isn't trying to impress anyone. Emily waters a dying rose and helps a rabbit simply because they ask. The mother only cares about finding her son. This is exactly what connects their everyday struggles back to our most fundamental understanding of heroism.
Which brings us to Section 3, the crucible of character. Because, as you'll see, being good just isn't enough in folklore. That goodness has to be tested. And I have to tell you, the universe is rarely fair about how it conducts these tests. In The Lost Child, the fairies of the forest act as judges to figure out who the real mother is between the human mother and a disguised witch. Step 1 is the food test. The real mother cooks this loving, simple rice dish, but the witch uses magic to conjure a giant chocolate cake. I mean, talk about unfair competition. What child isn't going to go completely crazy for a giant chocolate cake? The test pushes the hero to the point of absolute despair before even moving to the hug and smell test. Let's move to and see how this builds in Mother Holly through the power of contrast. When Emily falls down the well into a magical land, she helps a rabbit pull a carrot, she waters a dying rose, and she diligently works for the strange Mother Holly. But then, when her lazy sister Emma tries to replicate that exact journey out of pure greed, she refuses to dirty her hands, ignores the plants entirely, and totally neglects the house chores. The crucible doesn't just test the hero, you see, it exposes the deep flaws of the antagonist.
Now, in Dhiru's case, his crucible is basically a chronological escalation of pure misery. On day 1, he endures heavy rain and terrible insults from the villagers just to earn a day's wage. Day 2, the leaking roof of his hut completely ruins all his hard-earned paper money. And by day 3, he catches a fever from working in the rain, drops a sack of grain at work, and faces complete financial ruin. The universe is actively trying to break his spirit and his hospitality.
All right, on to Section 4, the face of evil.
The antagonists that our heroes are up against represent the absolute darkest human trait. In The Lost Child, we've got the deceptive witch who literally steals a child and casts an illusion to steal the mother's face. In Mother Holly, we have lazy Emma, and later, the greedy burly hunters who try to chop down Mother Holly's home just to build a hunting lodge. And in Dhiru's world, we meet the cruel landlord, Thakur Durjan Pratap. These villains represent deception, laziness, and unchecked greed. They are the essential, necessary foils to our heroes.
Thakur's cruelty is just perfectly captured right here. When a feverish, exhausted Dhiru accidentally drops one sack of grain into a puddle, Thakur doesn't just fire him. No, he demands impossible restitution, saying, "You must compensate 3 sacks for one." He tells Dhiru he can't come back to work until he brings the money for 3 sacks, which is a sum an impoverished laborer could never ever afford. It is absolute, ruthless extortion designed specifically to crush the vulnerable.
Next up is Section 5, Ultimate Karmic Justice. So what exactly is karmic justice? Well, in folklore, it's this philosophical concept where the universe, or a magical proxy like fairies or Mother Holly, actively restores balance by rewarding virtue and punishing wickedness. It is the structural climax that tightly binds every single one of these stories together.
And let me tell you, karmic justice in folktales is nothing if not wonderfully extreme. The righteous receive these ultimate blessings. The mother gets her child back safely. Emily gets showered in gold as she walks through a magical door, and Dhiru's stranded guests turn out to be incredibly wealthy merchants. Meanwhile, the wicked face absolute humiliation. The witch is locked in a fairy cage. Emma walks through that exact same magical door and gets rained on by thick mud. And the greedy hunters are scared right out of the forest by Emily pretending to be a ghost.
But, the justice isn't always just about money or punishment. Oftentimes, it's deeply emotional. In The Lost Child, after the child is lured in by the witch's chocolate cake, the real mother asks for just one last hug. And the moment he embraces her muddy, feather-covered clothes, he whispers, "Mama," by my smell. That simple, beautiful realization shatters the witch's illusion entirely. It proves that genuine love is a magic of its own, far stronger than any spell.
So the crucial point is really this. The ultimate reward in these tales isn't just wealth, it's connection. Yes, Raman and Janki give Dhiru enough money to confidently throw it right back in the cruel Thakur's face. But the real reward happens when Raman notices a distinct birthmark on Dhiru's neck. They realize they are long-lost brothers. The outcast who is mocked for having no family is ultimately rewarded for his hospitality with the very thing he desired most: true family connection.
And finally, we arrive at Section 6, Why These Morals Matter.
Distilling this all down, from The Lost Child, we learn that genuine love pierces through the darkest illusions and deceptions. Mother Holly teaches us that diligence and care build lasting fortunes while laziness literally leaves you in the mud. Dhiru's tale reminds us that selfless hospitality brings unexpected salvation right when you least expect it. And across all of them, we see that solidarity and cooperation are absolutely required to rebuild what is broken.
But I really want to highlight a surprising and honestly beautiful twist in the Mother Holly story that elevates it way beyond a simple morality play. After Emily scares off those greedy hunters, she needs help rebuilding Mother Holly's ruined house. So she asks her once lazy sister, Emma, for help. And Emma, having actually learned her lesson from the mud shower, agrees. When they unite to repair the house, the story transcends mere karmic punishment. It becomes a really profound lesson in redemption, female solidarity, and the idea that even the wicked can learn, adapt, and help others.
Which leaves us with this final thought. Just look at how seamlessly a magical forest in Europe and a rain-soaked village in India speak the exact same emotional language. Are these simply bedtime stories to quiet children, or are they the deepest blueprints of human morality hiding in plain sight? The next time you hear a simple fairy tale, look a little closer. You might just find the very mechanics of humanity staring back at you. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep seeking out the stories around you, and I will see you next time.